I don't know if you've ever had the experience of looking for something and it's so obviously right in front of you and yet you don't see it or recognize it. More times than I'd like to admit, I've been searching for my glasses, tearing the house apart and maybe even getting angry with somebody for moving them, and then I discover they're sitting right on my face. One of my favorite moments in Easter is found in a story in Luke chapter 24. It happens on Easter Sunday. It's early afternoon into the evening that this story transpires. It's one of those stories as you read it that just tells itself. There's two of Jesus' followers that are walking down a road. They're going down a path, a 7-mile journey from Jerusalem to Emmaus. All of the events of Easter had transpired. Jesus' death was devastating to them. These were Jesus' followers. They had put all of their hope and faith and trust in him and in the restoration of his kingdom and for peace to return. And yet now Jesus was gone. And they had stuck around to grieve and to visit his burial. And we read in Luke chapter 24 that these two were going to this village called Emmaus, a 7-mile journey from Jerusalem. We're told that they were talking with each other about everything that had happened. And as they talked, we read, and as they discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them. But they were kept from recognizing him. Now, I'm not sure what kept them from recognizing Jesus. Maybe that was something that Jesus had done, or maybe they were so focused on their discouragement. Maybe Jesus had a hood on, I'm not sure. But as they walked that entire 7-mile journey, Jesus walked with them and listened to them as they talked about their discouragement and their loss of hope. In fact, we read, Jesus comes and asks them, "What are you discussing as you walk along?" And they respond to him and says, "Are you the only one visiting Jerusalem that has no idea what's happening these days?" And we're told Jesus responds and says, "What things?" It's almost as if he's probably holding back a little chuckle and just playing along. And he says, "Oh, what are you talking about? What's going on here?" One of my favorite parts about this story is this idea that Jesus journeyed for 7 miles with them. As they talked about their discouragement, as they talked about the hope that they had lost, as they were so honest about their emotions along this road. And Jesus just takes it in. And he knows what's about to happen. He knows what's about to transpire. And yet he takes time to listen to their hearts. I think what makes this story so impactful to me is this idea that these two are journeying down this road, that each step they take along this 7-mile journey, they're consumed with their discouragement. They feel like their hope has been lost, and yet the very one that can restore their hope, the very one that they had placed their hope in, is actually right there with them. And I can just imagine that each step of the way, Jesus is getting a little bit more giddy. He's getting excited. There's something in him welling up because he knows what's about to transpire. And then the beautiful moment happens when we see that he was at the table with them. And what does it say that Jesus does? He grabs the bread and he breaks bread. Just like he had done less than a week ago at Passover, around a table. And he breaks bread and he serves them. And we're told in that moment their eyes are opened and they recognize who he is. And can you imagine the scene that must have erupted? I mean, the jumping and the shouting and the excitement. And then all of a sudden the question of how come you didn't tell us earlier? What is going on? And the laughter. And I just imagine the reunion would have been spectacular. And all of the hope that came rushing back into their hearts, all of the discouragement faded away as they recognized who they were with. What a powerful picture this paints for us. That every step that we take along the way, along our 7-mile journey, that even when we're surrounded by discouragement, when we feel like hope is fading, when we feel like the world around us is maybe crumbling, That even in those moments, the very one that has the ability to restore hope into our lives, to build life back into our lives, is walking with us even when we don't recognize him. And so, Jesus, may we recognize you today. May you open our eyes, and may we have an encounter with you in which your hope floods into our discouragement, and it floods into our brokenness and restores us to new life. God, may you speak that hope as you reveal yourself to the world around us, even in these moments together.